to the 3AE member webinar on country evaluation briefs, institutionalizing the use of evidence through user-friendly products. And thanks all for your patience as we got started here. We're having just some technical difficulties, but they seem to be resolved, so we'll be on our way for this. My name is Jen Ludwig, and I am a Senior Program Manager at 3AE, and I work a lot on our member engagement activities. And the webinar series is a new initiative that we've had just for the past year. It's a quarterly webinar series. The live webinars are really for members only, although we do record them and post on our YouTube channel and webpage. The webinars explore issues and innovations related to rigorous evidence for development decision making. They're almost always co-hosted by members. We had one that was not, and we have speakers that include members, 3AE staff, and external experts. And the purpose of the webinar, there are a few of them. So one is that, you know, we have 49 member agencies around the world, and we do have some in-person events, but we were looking for a way to connect with staff of member agencies that we don't always see. And so this is one way to do that, and also to promote the great work that members are doing, and to kind of support networking and peer learning as well. So today we have two speakers. We have Jan-Petter Holtedahal. He's a senior advisor in the evaluation department at Norad. Of his bio, a political scientist by education, Jan-Petter has worked in and on fragile states and situations since 1999, including Afghanistan, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Indonesia, Somalia, and the Sudan, Darfur. He has held leadership positions in humanitarian operations and has worked as a political advisor and analyst. From 2011 to 2015, he was the counselor for Somali affairs at the Norwegian Embassy in Nairobi. He came to NORAD in 2006 and to the evaluation department in August 2015. After Jan-Petter's presentation, we'll hear a response from Beryl Leach, who is the Deputy Director and Head of the Policy, Advocacy, and Communication Office at 3AE. She's also a member of 3AE's senior management team. As Head of Policy, Advocacy, and Communication, Beryl leads and provides strategic direction to 3AE's work, ensuring that 3AE-funded evidence production is relevant, and that 3AE supports engagement, uptake, and use of findings from impact evaluations and systematic reviews. She leads on 3AE's advocacy to promote commitment to evidence-informed policymaking, programming, and practice in international development. Her current research focus is on building understanding of the production and use of evidence in organizations and decision-making. She leads on 3AE's work on increasing the gender and equity responsiveness of research design, implementation, and reporting, and on updating 3AE's ethical research standards. Beryl Leach has more than 15 years of senior and executive level experience in innovative achievement in international development. She designed and implemented groundbreaking gender mainstreaming in an international organization, provided technical support to and supervision of a major World Bank-funded 10-year program to build a long-term ecological research system in China. She developed advocacy campaigns and coalitions that helped change WTO rules and national legislation that increased access to essential medicines. She has an MSc in International Public Health with distinction from the Liverpool School of Public Health. So we are going to hear from Jan-Petter Holtedahal on the country evaluation briefs. Okay.
All right, so welcome to this presentation of a new product from the evaluation department, which we call country evaluation briefs, or CEBs. Let me start with a few words about the evaluation department. The 11-member department is formally a part of Norad, but has as its mandate to initiate and conduct independent evaluations of Norway's development assistance, including any part of the roughly $4 billion per year development budget. The Evaluation Department commissions evaluations conducted on its behalf by independent third parties. When finalized, evaluation reports are forwarded from the Evaluation Department direct to the Secretary General of the Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs. The department produces about 10 evaluation reports per year. Change, please. So, let us look briefly at why we have chosen to produce the country evaluation briefs. This goes back to the Evaluation Department's mandate, the revised version of which was published on the 23rd of November 2015. An important part of our mandate is to systematize and provide learning about Norway's development interventions. Based on existing evaluation reports, the CEBs should demonstrate existing knowledge contained in the evaluative material. The CEBs are intended to be reader-friendly, succinctly providing busy staff at the MFA, NORAD, and at embassies with easily accessible, yet well-founded evaluative knowledge about donor interventions in relevant countries. We hope the CEBs will contribute to strengthening the knowledge bases for decision-making and ultimately to better development assistance. Finally, the CEBs should identify areas where there is a need for further evaluative knowledge about development interventions. The CEBs are brief synthesis reports on selected focus countries. In Norwegian parlance, focus countries are prioritized partner countries for Norway and encompass 6 fragile states and 6 countries classified as stable. The fragile focus countries include Afghanistan, Palestine, Haiti, Mali, Somalia, and South Sudan, while Ethiopia, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Myanmar, and Nepal make up the list of stable focus countries. The CEBs are based on existing evaluations and other reports and highlight key findings from the selected evaluations or other reports on the country in question. The 3 countries selected in the first or pilot phase include Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Mozambique, and have been hyperlinked here to the CEBs at norad.no. The CEBs also contain clickable references to the underlying evaluation reports. The CEBs are being produced by the Christian Michelsen Institute, which won the commission after an open competition organized by the Evaluation Department. In the next phase, which is just starting, we will be looking at Palestine, Somalia, and Malawi. According to the terms of reference, the CEBs should inform the reader about the following key issues. First, what are the key contextual features characterizing each case country? Second, how do these contextual features affect development interventions in the countries? What is the nature of the program or project studied, including levels of development support? What are the major obstacles or challenges faced by those interventions? What are the major findings regarding goals, methods, challenges, results, and sustainability? How do the development interventions perform in terms of such cross-cutting issues as women's rights and gender equality, environmental sustainability, and anti-corruption? And what are the intended or unintended consequences, be they direct or indirect, positive or negative? In addition to the CEBs, the consultant was asked to produce so-called evaluation portraits. These consist of 2 main elements. First, a compilation of brief abstracts of the selected evaluation reports or reviews, etc., that inform the country evaluation briefs. And second, direct links to the underlying evaluation material. Let me briefly share with you the methodology that was used to produce the CEBs. First, the consultant mapped existing evaluations, reviews, and other reports on development interventions in the selected focus countries. The selection of evaluations and other reports were based on such selection criteria as types of documents, including existing evaluations, reviews, and other documents. The sources included well-established institutions, such as evaluation offices of multi- or bilateral institutions and donors, NGOs, and academic institutions. Support channels included multilateral, bilateral, and civil society. The period of publication was from 2010 onwards. The form of assistance included longer-term development issues, the humanitarian to development nexus, and the security to development nexus. Thematically, the consultant would focus on significant areas of development and humanitarian issues, and the cases, as mentioned, included Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Mozambique. The consultant proceeded to carefully read the selected material and to present the main findings in each CEB. It was emphasized that the final CEBs should have a brief, simple, and attractive format. The CEBs, as the evaluation portraits, would contain direct links to the underlying evaluation reports. Let us take a look at some of the key findings that emanated from evaluations of donors' efforts in Afghanistan, and which were presented in the country evaluation brief on that country. First, Western political and military interests largely define the nature and volume of development assistance, contrary to such development criteria as the absorption capacity of the recipient. Second, the evaluations find limited documented effects on poverty reduction, gender equality, and sustainability. However, there were significant results in health and education, albeit from a very low baseline. For instance, in health, there was a quadrupling of the number of health facilities and a near halving of under 5 mortality. In education, many schools were built and many pupils enrolled, but the quality was more uncertain. A successful modality was the marrying of donor funds and NGOs supporting a line ministry. International NGOs, or INGOs, with a long track record and long-term horizon, succeeded in building local civil society capacity through partnering arrangements. The National Solidarity Program, or NSP, a community-based rural development program, succeeded in producing bottom-up development. Finally, the use of multi-donor trust funds, or MDTF, was advantageous when well managed. However, the evaluations overwhelmingly point to continued aid dependency on the part of the Afghan government. Next, let's turn to the findings that emanate from evaluations of another focus country selected as a case, South Sudan, and that have been included in the country evaluation brief for that country. First, donors lacked an overarching strategic plan for their recovery and development assistance to the country. Diplomats, politicians, and development actors did not cooperate sufficiently well to develop joint approaches. Donor programs, even within the field of peace and reconciliation, did not reflect the political context to a sufficient degree. Donor visions differed from those of key national and local actors, and joint donor funds were slow and cumbersome. When some donors chose other channels, aid became fragmented. This brings us to the crucial issue we set out to respond to. How do we ensure the use of evaluative material by those people in the ministry, in Norad, and at embassies that this material is directed at? It is sobering to think of the fact that too often evaluations and evaluation findings go underread and underutilized by those that ought to have the most to gain from using them. So, what are the key factors already employed to ensure use of the CEBs? A reference group representing the user groups, i.e. MFA, Norad, and embassies, was established and gave inputs from an early stage. A simple, attractive, user-friendly format was sought. We organized a launch seminar with CEB authors, MFA representatives, Norad, civil society, and other interested parties. We engaged the media, including being interviewed by a Norwegian daily newspaper. And there was wide dissemination to partners in the MFA, Norad, and at embassies, as well as to external NGO partners and members of the evaluation community, including the OECD DAC. The latter also assisted in further sharing the CEBs and evaluation portraits with their extensive network of partners. Beyond this, we're extremely curious to learn about how useful the various potential users find the CEBs and EPs to be, and to hear from you and others what other measures could be taken to ensure the use of this type of evaluative material. So, how have the main user groups in the MFA, NORAD, and the embassies in focus countries received the CEBs and evaluation portraits? We're very eager to learn from the user groups, as well as other interested partners, what you think about those products, notably, what are the strong points, what can be improved, and do you think you will be using this product in your daily work? Thank you.
Thank you, Jan-Petter. This is Jen again, and we're going to shift into sort of the question and answer and discussion mode. And I'd encourage anyone who has some thoughts on anything that the team is interested in hearing from you. What do you see as the strong points of this product? How do you think it could be improved? What are some thoughts you have on use? Is this the kind of thing that could be useful in your agency? Could you see other audiences that it would be useful for? And if you could write those, just type those into there's a question box, and we can just read them out here. You know, it's a little awkward for people to just speak into the abyss. So just type them in the question box, and right now we'll hear some thoughts from Beryl Leach based on her experience on how this relates really to evidence uptake and sort of what the benefits could be and what could be improved. Thanks. Let me just.
Hi, this is Beryl. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Jen, can you confirm? You can confirm? Okay,
Yes.
fine.
Yep,
thanks so much to everyone for including me in what is a really interesting and timely presentation about efforts to be able to summarize and present and have evaluation findings be used especially at the country level. So I have a few short reactions, and in that probably a question or two is going to pop up that might help launch into the discussion phase. But I want to point out that for starters, that there's so much that's sort of correct, or what we think we know about what is good in developing briefs that is that's represented in this effort, and I want to highlight a few of them. They're short. They start out right at the beginning by they want to be plain language and accessible to the readers. They rely on evidence that people could read and feel that it's trustworthy. All right, even if you're not an expert at what is quality, there's a sense of, one, how it's been gathered, but also if you're not sure, it's crucially important that they're providing links to people who want to go and see the actual reports themselves. And I find that a good strategy. I also want to point out something that is often downplayed in summarizing, and yet in development work, as you all know in the audience, context is key. And oftentimes we tend to filter that out in preparing briefs, but we do it at our peril. That in that context is the complexity that will help us understand those findings. Just jumping to sort of what it is and what I'm going to tell you, and here are the main findings, and if you want to know more, go read more, can trip up if there isn't enough context, if there isn't enough situating of what are the factors that can contribute to evidence-informed program and practice, and what are the constraints we can have. I know for those of you with experience in fragile and conflict affected areas, it's very easy to design the perfect program on paper and watch it go nowhere in the real world. So I wanted to highlight that. Then I think that one of the things that I would love to hear more on from either participants who are in the reference group or others about the fact that these briefs are they're developed for a wide range of audiences, and this is intriguing to me because we find that even though we might all work in development, and 3IE's main audiences, to give you an example, would be researchers, and in particular researchers who are working in impact evaluation or on systematic reviews of development interventions, and the decision makers, and those can be policymakers, program managers, practitioners in a given field. And while they seem to sort of be similar, and even if I threw in civil society working in those sectors, there are important differences. And one thing that I would throw out for further thought in the reference groups is to be sure that one is understanding both the similarities that bring us together to work on these issues, but also the differences in what we need from our evidence. Researchers are looking for a type of evidence based on their objectives in knowledge creation. Policymakers want something quickly that they can be assured works, and that they can understand if it's an affordable and politically viable option for them to support. Does it fit with what they currently think works? Civil society also playing a crucial role, and I don't want to put down how they work, but I think it's important that they play more of an advocacy role, and they're looking for evidence that can help build their cases, so that their arguments are evidence informed and not just moral arguments about protecting human rights and doing good and not harming and protecting and all of the rest that is so important to what we do. Civil society recognizing in today's world they need to understand evidence, they need to know where to find it, they need to know how to use it correctly. So I think there could be rich discussions in the reference group. Make sure that it's not just one brief is one size fits all, but how you then take that summarized information and you promote the tweaking of it for better use by the audiences and in response to what they feel that they need. And in that, I just would like to insert possibly one question that I would have for further discussion or clarification, which is, I note that the briefs themselves are identified, what is needed is identified through a reference group, and I think that's fantastic. The actual doing of the work, though, and I may be wrong, but I think this is important to try to tease out, the actual work of the brief production is done by a consulting firm, and then those briefs are produced to a fairly good draft level and then shared back with the reference group, or it could be in fairly final form by that time, where it then becomes more of a here you go, now please disseminate and use as you see fit. One of the things that we've learned in 3IE, and the reason I've highlighted this, is that we find that the production of evidence synthesis or research itself benefits from that early engagement. That, again, is fantastic, but that it actually is also important to keep key players involved, because what gets summarized, what's considered important, what's considered useful is a mediated answer amongst key players. It's not a cut and dried, oh, I found it, I'm just going to chop this out, put a bullet in front of it, and that's the answer. And that we always find that we are happier with what we are producing when we have that chance to have a discussion about what's being found and to double check and to build interest. We find that we get better uptake and use of our products if we've engaged with people while they're being produced. So not just the findings, but hey, here's what we're doing. This is why it's important. These are the obstacles we're facing. And sharing those experiences, because people can then help find common ground and buy into using them. The final thing that I would impart is, as I'm absolutely sure I'm over time, is that and now in thinking about the time, I'm gonna lose my my last thought. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to give that up and turn it over to others to discuss. And I probably will try to chip back in with that comment as soon as it comes back to me when I can do it politely.
Okay. Thanks so much for your comments. It was really interesting. I'm sure it'll be useful to NORAD as well. And Jan-Petter, I think it'd be good to hear, a couple of just reactions to some of the points that that Beryl had. We did have one clarifying question in the meantime that maybe you can answer before that. So the question is, in the methodology to prepare for the briefs, does the review include only evaluations from the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, or does it span a broader range?
I hope you can hear me well. Thank you. And on this clarifying question, it does include any relevant evaluations, reviews, and other type reports, also from other agencies. So I did briefly touch upon it in the selection criteria, but it's been very brief, of course. But it's not just Norwegian material. It is indeed other institutions of weight that have something to say about the interventions of various donors in those countries.
Okay, thank you. And is there anything just off the cuff that you wanted to say with response to some of Beryl's comments, such as working with different audiences and kind of that side of the process?
Yes, for my part, and I should say I sit here with a few colleagues, including our department director. But briefly from my side, I want to thank Beryl for very thorough and thoughtful and I must say positive comments. I won't elaborate on those. It's good to hear that this is the impression. There was one question there that I picked up on the reference group and sort of its continued role in providing inputs. I just wanted to share that, as said, the reference group was established at an early point. The way we did it during the production was that one country was selected for sort of an elaborate draft as an attachment to the inception report, and the reference group came in at the first time with substantive comments after that had been produced, and that was fed back to the consultant. And then later on, when the first revised draft was made of that, and similarly the two other CEBs have been produced based on the same format and utilizing those same comments. They came in again with substantive comments to all three. And we kept them informed later on. So they had inputs at two different points in time. And I think it was highly useful for the consultant and certainly for us to hear.
Okay, that's great. We had another question that the person was interested in looking at an example of how the CEBs look. So I do want to point everyone, we have some links here, and I'll be sending out the slides to participants in PDF form so that people can see it. Let me see if I can get to one right now. So here is the link I just pulled up to the Afghanistan brief. I guess it needs to be downloaded. Let's see if this works. I'm at least here's the kind of summary of it.
Go for download, please.
Yep. Here we go. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. Jan-Petter, is there anything that you'd want to say to just walk through this a little bit? I can scroll down. I know you guys are still on the iPad over there.
Sure. Maybe I should start commenting on the most immediately apparent. We spent quite some time looking for suitable photos, illustrations. So that's the first thing you see, and you will see those pictures throughout in various formats. We emphasized that the reader needs to see the main findings at a very early point. There's also a map of the country coming up very early. There's boxes, and one of them is a fact box on the country. And then we move on towards the context being discussed fairly thoroughly compared to the the short length of the total product, but the context was viewed as very important to emphasize. And then we move to look at the what was reviewed and selected, and then the main findings from the evaluations and other type reports that were looked at. And then, importantly, the last chapter is called Lessons Learned, and there the consultant was left with somewhat free reins to comment on the findings that they had found and presented, and provide their own perspective on those findings. And we believe that one strength of the team was that they had substantial knowledge about each of these countries, and so would be in a great position to actually provide such a perspective, bird's eye view on the findings, and to put it in context, and maybe even comment on it, basically.
Okay, thanks for the description, and just again to remind everyone, we will send the slides from this presentation, including the links to the country evaluation briefs following this webinar. But Jan-Petter, can you just also clarify? So I was noticing above, and I think people would be interested to know, these bubbles here in the main findings, this is the clickable part. Is that correct?
The clickable part, that would be if you go to the reference list at the very back. Okay. I didn't mention that, but at the very back, there's this reference list in it, and the references are clickable. So you will find the underlying material immediately.
Okay. Yeah,
also, at the very beginning of the product, the very first page for the Afghanistan part is the farmer you see, there is a content list underneath the photo. And those are clickable. Will bring you straight to whatever chapter you want, including to the references at the end. There's an arrow on the right, so you can hit the arrow, and you should get right where you need to be. So either click on the item, or you go for the arrow to move on page by page.
Okay, wonderful. I think just want to give people a chance to ask any other questions, or if anyone had a response, thinking about how you might use this in your work. Just to give people a minute to ask questions.
We might have, I don't know, I hope we have a good friend and colleague with us from Juba. She might be there, and I spoke with her previously. She'd like to comment if she's with us, but there might, I don't know whether there are technical hitches. So Are you there?
I can unmute her. Gudvar, so I've unmuted you, and can you I guess just introduce yourself. I know that Jan-Petter had mentioned you joining us before, but yeah, any feedback that you have would be great.
Yeah, thank you. But can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Very good, excellent. First of all, thanks for giving me this possibility to join in the meeting. My position is head of cooperation at the Norwegian Embassy in Juba. So I'm calling in from Juba right now. First of all, I would like to say that we found this evaluation very, very useful. It is very user-friendly. It comes to us in an environment where most people are here on short-term contracts. The summary is not that good. So to have this brief where relevant evaluations are presented in a very user-friendly way is a very, very good thing for us. So we really appreciate that initiative. I would also say that we find the briefs highly relevant. It's very clear that you have chosen consultants that are aware and have very good knowledge of the situation of South Sudan. And of course, that's a must for these briefs to be relevant. We have been, during the process, we were also in contact with the consultants, and they asked for our advices, and we also appreciated that. When you talk about what could be improved, when reading these briefs, we are sitting here in Juba in an environment that is, the reality is that we work in an environment that it's war, it's conflict, it's lack of access, it's political chaos. We are again at the crossroads where we have to find out what are we as donors going to do from here. After the incidents in July, all donors are now rethinking their engagement. Many of the donors are also not back in Juba yet. So it's a highly complex situation where we all look for where do we go from here. So in that sense, these briefs are also very timely. They could help us at the stage that we're in right now. But of course, then we have to use them. And I know that they have now been presented in Oslo for stakeholders there. And that's, of course, very, very important to engage policymakers, because some of the suggestions presented in the briefs requires changes in policies, requires changes in resources allocated to embassies and donors. Sorry?
No, it just
Am I going out?
No, the sound went out for 1 second. If you can just repeat the last sentence.
Okay. No, I was just saying that it's very good that the briefs has been presented in Oslo and to the policymakers. I think that's vital, because some of the suggestions that or the recommendations requires change in policy, requires change in capacity and resources allocated to donors and embassies. And I know that in Norway now we are in that stage where we are going to make political, economical analysis on South Sudan. So to have the foundation in this country relation brief is just excellent. How do we then use these briefs here in Juba? Because it would be very helpful for us as a donor community to have a common understanding based on the country evaluation briefs. And of course, we can have a discussion here in Juba based on the briefs themselves. But it would even be better if we could have either the consultants or somebody from the evaluation department coming to Juba and facilitate the discussion to help us. Because I mean, in the situation that I described, that is a little bit chaotic. We also sometimes don't have the resources or the capacity to sit down and have these very needed discussions. So that would be a question, or maybe a request from us to help us to have the discussion around the findings in the briefs and evaluations also at Juba level, if possible.
Should I respond to that immediately, Jen?
If you could respond, and we had another question that came in that I think is really relevant to what Gunvar is saying, the question about how long do the briefs take to produce, and also if you're planning to update at some point, how long would it take to update them? That seems relevant, especially for a conflict or fragile state. So maybe if you could take those together, would be great.
Yes, thank you. Three things then. To respond to Gunnar first, and it's great to have our department director present. This is a very, very interesting idea that we might visit Juba and give a presentation and then engage in discussion on the ground. And that's certainly something we will consider going forward. Secondly, to the question on time, the contract, of course, we started earlier because the total process here included a competition. There was a great interest in this, so let's say the process started in February, March, and by the time everyone had had the chance to respond and present their proposals, and we had made a careful selection. We were in May. Contract signed on the 9th of May. The summer was used by the consultant to do the first draft of one, and then it took another half year before we had the final products. We had our presentation here at Norad on the 16th of November. So half a year roughly for the production itself. And we are planning, as I also had put in the presentation, to do further CEBs on another 3 countries to start with. And we expect to be able to save a bit of time because the concept has already been developed now, and there was an option in the contract to continue with the same consultant for another 3 countries. So clearly, with that understanding we have, the mutual understanding we have, we expect to save time and actually have the next 3 ready by probably in May. We hope to have a presentation of final CEBs. On timing and updates, very pertinent question. We have not planned for updates of the CEBs themselves. However, they refer to the evaluation portraits, and we have planned 2 annual updates of existing CEBs. So to start with, that would be November next year. We would update those the 3 that are available for you now, and the 3 that we plan to have produced by May. And then we will do a similar update of the evaluation portraits, i.e. containing the very short abstracts of each of the underlying reports, as well as the link to the reports themselves, for new material that has appeared after the initial production of the evaluation portraits.
Okay, that's great. So we're just about, I guess, to close. I wanted just to take a minute to really thank you, Jan-Petter, and your team. These are really great products. They're very relevant to so many other 3IE members, and really to 3IE and the work that we're doing. I just wanted to invite also you and or Beryl, if you had any kind of comments to close up. Please just take a minute to do so.
Hi, it's Beryl again, and I just I wanted to say congratulations again, and that it looks like time will save us from the naughty discussion that we all have to face about how to monitor the actual use of products like this. And I'll just throw out one suggestion based on what we've been learning, and that is that it helps if you can use the reference group or the groups at country level, at the embassy level, to be discussing what their incentives are to be using them, how they think they're likely to use them, and not try to monitor the whole universe, but to agree on what would be really important ways to demonstrate that they're being used, and to set up simple feedback systems so that people could organize and be able to answer, say, short survey monkey questions once a month. We have found that people forget how they use stuff, so that the forgetful factor is important about self-reporting, and so I would flag up that yes, we do deal with that, but we're trying to come up with resource-efficient ways to promote monitoring so that we can tell the story, not just how we're producing it and that we're following evidence-informed on knowledge that we have about how to do a good job at it, but then also to be able to tell the story of how they were used and what it meant. And I would love to just flag something that I heard from the colleague speaking from Juba, and that is, I jotted down this note that briefs as bridges. And it's because of this pointing out of the importance of a voice that is isolated and with limited resources and hugely important things are going on. What are the ways to carry that message to where power is and decision makers are, and then how to set up that interaction and the recommendations to have it become a two-way exchange of information. And I just found that that was a really enlightening and I think important part of what I was hearing about the many ways that these briefs are valuable, and just wanted to point that out. So thanks again, and I really look forward to continuing to find out how this enterprise develops and is used.
Thank you, Beryl. Jen, I have a brief comment, if I may, a response. Yes, I simply want to thank, first of all, everyone for having participated, listened, and contributed with questions, clarifying or otherwise. A very special thanks to, I start with Gilmore, who is out in the field, who is one of those that we hope this product will be useful for taking time off from her very important mission and coming with these very, very pertinent inputs and advice for the further work. You guys, Gilmore in the field, but also you others, are incredibly important to keep this a living and relevant product, and we certainly will take on board the advice. And also to you, Beryl, thank you for your very, very positive, but also your nuanced comments and advice that we will also do our best to take on board. And this, I think this session in itself helps us keep this a living product and not something that ends up on a shelf, which is the worst fate an evaluation product can suffer, but unfortunately too often does. So thanks again, wonderful. And just to encourage all of you, please, if you have further thoughts, and you may need some time to go into this in a bit more detail if you want to, we'd be extremely grateful for any written inputs coming to us afterwards. You will find us, of course, on our website.
Okay, is there an email address that people can send comments to?
Yes, there is. Just 1 second. It's post-eval at norad.no. I'll spell it post-eval at norad.no.
Okay, and I'll send that to people also with the slides. So thanks again, everybody. participants and speakers for joining us today. We hope to see you all, or I guess hear you all at future webinars. If you think that there's something from your agency that you'd like to share with other 3IE members, please contact us at any time to let us know. We're always excited to brainstorm and hear what people are interested in sharing.
And Jen, finally, forgive me, but I forgot to thank you and 3IE for hosting this wonderful seminar, webinar.
Okay, thanks everyone. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everyone. Good night.